And to discuss this and more, joining me now for more analysis is Ehtisham Shahid. He is an editor at the Emirates Policy Center. Ehtisham, thanks for joining me on Gravitas at this hour.
Thank you.
How do you view this recent development? It seems to be the first US military action taken to defend Israel in this war. A US missile destroyer intercepting Houthi missiles. It begs the question, is this now becoming an American war?
Not on the face of it. I mean, it's easy to arrive at those conclusions, but you look at the larger picture and it doesn't seem to be moving in that direction, at least for now. As far as the Arab countries are concerned, they understand that there is bipartisan support for Israel in the United States. So it's a given that nobody even questions that. What they expect is the least semblance balance between the two sides, especially when on issues such as humanitarian corridors and things like that. It's an unequal war anyways. The conflict has been going on for so many decades. So it's understood that it's not a black and white phenomenon. You have to look at arguments from both sides, and sometimes you tilt towards one or the other. But then the way things started unfolding from October 7 and the response and the equilibrium of the response, if I may call it that, was in question. And then the hospital bombing happened. Now you hear that a church has been bombed. So it's been so many mixed signals coming in, and all that was happening at a time when there was I called it a season of rapprochement in this part of the world. The Iranians and the Saudis were talking, and that was likely to have a cascading impact on countries such as Yemen and Lebanon and Syria and all that.
If I may interject there, you're talking about the season of rapprochement. Do we also see the Muslim world uniting for the Palestinian cause? And what happens then to Israel and the United States?
The Muslim world has been united on the Palestinian cause for a long time now. I mean, if you go out of this region, countries such as Indonesia and Malaysia, they've always been calling for it's probably unfair to label it that way, because the entire world has been united on a two-state solution. And there are United Nations resolutions. Almost every party outside of the conflicting parties maintain that there should be a two-state solution. But there has been no movement on that front. And then once something like this happens, the least the Arabs expect is an equal and measured response from both sides. But when you see the Americans strongly being on the side of the Israelis, and not even willing to condemn the attacks on civilians in Gaza, then it reaches a level of desperation that we've witnessed on the streets of the Middle East and Europe, and a large intelligentsia also coming out.
Talking about the US's strategy here, what you just mentioned now, President Biden is pledging to provide Israel billions of dollars in additional aid. In fact, reports are also saying that a veteran US State Department official has resigned, and he has called this move short-sighted and destructive. What's your assessment of that?
Well, there are no surprises. And as far as the Arab world is concerned, it's not a surprise that they're willing to back Israel to the extent that they are. But then that you will have to look at the cause and effect here, because now the Arab world is also getting together. Now there was a GCC ASEAN summit that you mentioned. There's going to be a Cairo summit tomorrow, which is being for which a lot of European leaders are coming in. South Africa's president is going to be there. So they are also gravitating towards probably trying to, I don't know if it is a positive out in these very gloomy times, but this could be a sign of trying to revive a Middle East peace process once and for all. Again, this is going beyond the narrative for now, but you never know with a conflict of this kind what turn it takes. So if there is very consolidated support for Israel from the American side, then that might also lead to a counter-polarization on the other side, and that will have its impact on a lot of geostrategic and economic corridors and things like that. The I2, U2, all that will come into question if it becomes more polarized than it is at the moment.
Right now, Ehtisham, and some analysts are also saying that the United States is close to being pulled into a Middle East war. We're also asking the same question. What's your assessment?
I don't think that stage has come yet. I don't think Middle East will jump into, especially with an election around the corner. I don't think they'll jump into a conflict of this kind. But yes, as far as steadfast support for Israel is concerned, that will continue, not just from the US, but countries like the UK and others. And that will also have an impact on the Arab countries, which have been trying to navigate between competing powers. There is also a China factor here, because China was very actively trying to resolve the Middle East, the Israel-Palestinian issue. And after the Iran-Saudi rapprochement happened, there were reports that the next could be Israel-Palestine. Now, that is a very, very big issue, because if China had managed to resolve this issue, that would have brought its hegemony in this part of the world, given a complete stamp, which didn't happen. So you never know. You connect the dots sometimes and say, oh, is this because China was taking too much of an advantage as far as the Middle East was concerned? So now it's all gone back to square one, and then a fresh start has to be made somewhere.
Just a final question. Let's talk about the hostage crisis. This is a hostage crisis like no other. Who will help get the hostages home? Will Qatar's diplomacy work in this case?
No, Egypt has always been a major player. They can come in. Jordanians have been trying to mediate between the Palestinians and Israelis. So there are enough players in the region who can bring about a resolution. UAE has always been very active on this front. So if they get together, if they make up their mind, if they think that the best way to resolve is to get a ceasefire, get the humanitarian corridors open, get the hostage situation resolved, that works for both the parties. But it will only happen if the Israelis are at least willing to give that kind of diplomacy a chance. If they continue to bombard people, it's not going to help, because the summit in Jordan had to be cancelled. If another summit is cancelled, then there are no corridors, there are no windows for negotiations.
Right. Ehtisham, thank you so much for all your analyses, and thanks for joining us on Gravitas.
Thank you.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.